Rumble! That's stolen, but I'm working on it, okay? It's Steve Aist and Roy Piscadlo here on Truth and Consequences. We have an excellent show for you today. Many of you have heard of Mark Cook. He's been traveling the nation, and he had been through Utah teaching about all the vulnerabilities in our elections. And it is extensive, and it is a can't miss presentation. And we will give the coordinates to where you can actually view that online. But for now, we've got him live today, and we're going to bring him in about 15 minutes. We appreciate everybody joining us. We are coming to you live on Call-In Radio Podcast, and it's Main Street Media Utah that's presenting this show, and we have other programs on our show every weekday from 2 to 6 p.m. And we encourage you all to tune into that because there's some really great people talking about really cool things from health to politics in various parts of Utah and other things. So Roy and I have an announcement to make. We both signed up to run for office this week, Roy.
Yep, and I am running for House District 41. I am fortunate in that I'm the only Republican running in that race, so I do not face a primary. I will be on the November ballot. But Steve, you're running for a much bigger.
Well, yeah, and that really kind of bums me out because I ran for that seat last time, and I had a primary opponent, and I got primaried out of the race.
Right, and I remember looking at your data, your Edison data, the reporting data, and it looked to me like somebody was stuffing the ballot boxes, and that's so. And that's took the other candidate over you because he wasn't pushing election integrity like you were.
Well, he stayed in his basement. He was much like Biden, and it's interesting how somebody can be totally unknown and still win. I knocked on 4,500 doors in this district personally. I don't think he knocked on one, save maybe his neighborhood, but that's kind of why we're here. We're talking about how our government lies to us, how they cheat in many ways. I'm not talking about everybody, but there are those that take advantage of the system. And I like to call it the uniparty because that's what it really is. It's Democrats and Republicans and others doing this, Roy.
Mm-hmm, that's right.
And so we feel compelled to come on and let as many people know about that as possible. Roy's running for the House seat 41 against a long-time democratically held seat. It'll be 34 years by the time, it was 32 when I ran. And so it'll be 34 years that seat's been held. I had no
idea.
I thought I talked to you about that.
She's been there. She's going to be there.
Not her personally, but it's been a Democrat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, she's not that old, but it's been democratically held for 34 straight years. Now, I'm running for a Senate seat in the 15th district, which includes Roy's 41st district, but it's about 4 times that size. It encompasses Cottonwood Heights, parts of Murray, Midvale, much of Sandy, West Jordan, and even parts of South Jordan and Holiday. So it's a really big area. Mm-hmm. And the tactic's going to be totally different this time. We plan at winning at convention. If we're going to do convention, we're out to win it this time. I've learned a thing or two about that, and we're going to go balls out. Excuse me for saying that, but we're going to go out and we're going to get it this time, Roy.
Well, yes. Because if we're actually both in, that would be really great. Is you're in the Senate and I'm in the House, we can actually get some legislation, put up and passed because we'll have much more influence.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can actually sponsor the legislation. We have, as many of you know, we've been to 25 of Utah's 29 counties. We've talked to Board of Canvass members in each of those counties. And most of the county clerks in those counties, probably 19 or 20 of the 29 county clerks in Utah. And interestingly enough, the Democrat in Salt Lake County, Lanny Chapman, has actually been very receptive.
You mean the county clerk?
What did I say?
You said the Democrat.
Well, she is a Democrat, but the county clerk.
She's the county clerk who actually runs the elections in Salt Lake County, which is the largest county in Utah.
It is, by far. And she's actually agreed to come on this show at a later date, which will be really interesting. So we look forward to talking with her. So we want to make sure that we give out the call-in number, and that's 385-899-2134. Get ready with those calls. We'd like to hear from a lot of you today. This is our 5th show, and we need to start getting some good callers. My computer here wants us to do an update. I think we'll skip on that for a minute. Wouldn't be a good time. I want to give thanks to God, because I think God has, I've really given this a lot of thought over the course of the last few days, Roy, because at first when I saw that I had 3 Republican opponents, I was a little discouraged about that. Then I started looking into who these opponents were. I did a little research on these opponents, and I realized that it's actually a wonderful opportunity. One of them is on LinkedIn. He's DEI certified from 2 universities, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, most of us know where that leads us. It's reverse discrimination. It's grown men in our women's locker rooms, and it's drag queen story hour at our schools and libraries, not to mention a plethora of other nonsense. Ills, nonsense to say the least. And so and he's actually a precinct chair too. And he's got this plastered all over his social media. And is this what the Republican Party's coming to in Utah, Roy?
No, I actually think it's changing. And that's going to be, people like that it's going to be more difficult for people like that to continue, I think.
I hope so. I hope people are waking up to the fact that it's actually happening, and it's happening right here in our great state of Utah. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, our local county council representative, Dia Theodore, proposed an ordinance to get rid of men in women's public locker rooms. And believe it or not, this is the sad part. I'm glad that she did it. I applaud her. I'm a huge supporter. In a Republican-held county council, they voted to kick this down the road, kick the can down the road, and they are not going to vote on this matter. What does that say about our Republican Party here in Utah? Do they really have the Republican principles that we hold dear?
Well, certainly some of them do not.
I hesitate to even call them a true Republican. I think we have other names for them, don't we?
Rhinos,
among other things. So this is why we're here. This is why we're fighting, because we're not willing to tolerate this anymore. That's why we're running for office. That's why we traveled the state, meeting with our elected officials. And that's why we're doing this radio program. And there's enough of us now that we're starting to wake people up, get the word out, and we're asking you to join our effort, because it's a huge task and it's serious business. So, Roy, you mentioned that Taiwan is having their elections over the weekend. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Before we go to Taiwan, want to tell all our listeners, Timcast is probably a podcast that people have heard of, Timcast IRL, and Trent Staggs, who's the mayor of Riverton, is running for Mitt Romney's seat, and he appeared on Timcast today. The only reason I really know about it is because my son is a big fan, and he sent me the link
of Skaggs or Timcast.
Timcast, okay. IRL, and he's saying you should go do that podcast. But leaving that aside, I saw that Trent had Trent had about 200. Well, Timcast had about 270,000 viewers in the last 15 hours, and Trent is running against a pretty crowded field, which includes John Curtis, who is vacating. Yeah. Which seat was that? That was.
Well, he's John Curtis currently holds the 3rd congressional
district. The
district
3rd congressional seat. And then I guess Orrin Hatch's son or grandson is running.
It's Orrin Hatch's son. So he's got to be like what, 80?
Yeah.
He's at least. I'd bet he's 60 because Orrin Hatch was in his 90s.
But there's a whole bunch of people, and you and I both met Trent several times, and he's an America First candidate, I really hope pulling for him, and I recommend that people go and check out Timcast IRL and see him on there and hear what he has to say. But going to Taiwan is actually having their elections right now, or this weekend actually, and it's a very big election because the opposition, some of the candidates for president, and as well as the lower bodies of the government, there are pro merging or recombining or combining with the Chinese Communist Party and China, and the candidate who's in the lead for president is actually very much wanting to keep Taiwan separate from China, does not want to become like Hong Kong and get forced to become part of China. And it's a very big election in that the outcome of the election, Xi Jinping has said, independent of the results of the election, he is going to try to take over Taiwan. If the election goes the way of the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, then there won't be any shooting. And if it goes the way of keeping Taiwan separate, there might be some shooting.
Well, and sometimes freedom requires that, unfortunately, and we've seen that throughout history.
Right.
But the good news is,
well, and that's my point. The good news is, I think I know where you're going, is the election is being done completely on paper, in person, by hand, and everything's being counted by hand.
That's a novel concept. Wow.
And everything is being videotaped or videoed and put online so people can actually watch the counting as it is happening live. And think about that. Right now, this is an election to keep Taiwan separate, and they are not trusting their elections in the tabulation of casting of ballots and the tabulation of those ballots to machines, because there's a lot of lives that hang in the balance. And just like in our elections, we have a lot hanging on each election, but we choose to just put everything to machines.
Well, we choose to do that, Roy, because the people in charge are
want it that way.
Well, they want it that way. They want to hide the truth. They don't want it to be transparent, or they'll be found out, and that they cheat. I'm not suggesting everybody cheats, but enough people cheat in key places that elections are flipped. We have seen so much evidence of that, and our guest Mark Cook has seen evidence of that, and he can probably speak to that best. And we're going to get him on here in a few minutes. This is Steve Ace and Roy Piscadlo on Main Street Media, Utah. We hope that you tell your friends about it. Roy and I are on every Wednesday from 4 to 6 p.m. This is our 5th show, 05. We're going to start counting them down. We'll be at 1,000 before you know it. Well, okay, maybe not, but
maybe not.
We'll see what happens. But we're excited about our elections, and I didn't quite finish my thought as it comes to my race and what I'm facing. So I've got one guy that's got DEI as kind of his stamp of vote for me. I'm woke, and I am going to include everybody, and I am hip. Well, this is a precinct chair, and he's running for state senate as a Republican, for something that has no Republican conservative values to it at all. And I submit I am going to have one hell of a good time with this dude because he will be exposed. Another guy is running, happens to be Cox's economic development director. And he's really big, it turns out, on smart cities. Well, we're going to have a whole separate show on what smart cities are and what the intent of smart cities will do. It's all about control. It's all about monitoring what we do. It's all about containing us so we can't cause problems. We will live there. We will own nothing, and we will be damn happy about it, right? Klaus Schwab. I think that's what Klaus Schwab said. And make no mistake, smart cities, the World Economic Forum in Davos, the UN, the WHO, they're all in this together. They want a reduction in population. They want us to live in certain areas without cars, without the ability and the freedom to travel as we choose. And this can't happen. This cannot stand. So this is us. And then the third lady is a school board member that decided that she thinks it would be fun. It would be fun to be in the state Senate. She's in the school board. She was heavy on mask mandates and vaccines. So those are my opponents, Roy. How do I not win in a conservative state with three opponents like that?
With electronic voting.
That's how yeah. Good point. Mark's going to tell us how I don't win, how I get primaried out. And I actually asked someone last night if we could do all paper ballots at convention. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
So we're going to start taking callers at 5 p.m. So in about 40 minutes. Call-in number is 385-899-2134. And we're going to bring Mark Cook in, and he's going to explain the odyssey that he's been on and the mission that he's been on. And he's going to share some of the information along with that. And then we're going to hopefully have our callers call in and ask Mark some questions because he's very good at answering them.
Yeah, and I swear we're going to bring him in a little earlier than 5 because I know that Mark is really already
we're taking calls at 5. Oh. We're going to bring Mark in right now if you click in that little button right there. Okay, just click the button.
Should we do it?
Yeah, let's bring in Mark.
Okay, this is Mark Cook, everybody. Roy's kind of pissing me off right now, but that's okay. Somebody wanted me to explain what DEI is. That's diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what it really is reverse discrimination against white people. That we've had it so good for so long that we owe everybody else a living. We owe them not based on merit. They get the position because they are a minority or have a different skin color. That's racist. Mm-hmm. It's a racist ideology.
It's not reverse racism, it's racist.
Yeah, it's reverse from what we're used to, but it's just flat out racism. And watch out for it. If you're voting, watch out for people that talk about it or ask them questions about it. So enough about us. We're going to go ahead and bring Mark Cook in. And I really admire Mark. He's dedicated his life to this. There's been people out there that have accused him of doing this as money grubbing and
this is election integrity
to enrich himself. But trust me when I tell you, he's put all his treasure into this. He's put everything into it. He's given of his time and his money, personal, and he is by no stretch of the imagination making money off this. So with no further ado, let's bring in Mark.
No. Don't click end stream. No. Click this
chill
button.
Out, dude.
You did. You had him.
Mark, are you there?
I am.
Okay. Good to have you with us.
You too. You guys bicker quite a bit. How long have you been married?
Quite some time. Quite some time.
Too long.
So Mark, why don't you introduce yourself and introduce what your mission is? I just think it's quite remarkable how many different states you've been in, visited, as well as the amount of time that you've actually spent in Utah. So there may be some listeners here who've actually seen your presentation in the past.
Sure. Wow. So my life is nowhere near what it used to be. It's completely changed direction as a result of our elections. Originally, I just a computer guy that started programming when I was 13 years old, started my company really young and been an entrepreneur. Was enjoying starting companies and doing tech things or mechanical things, and really would just want to get into kind of a charity position where I could help our youth realize that they can be masters of their own domain and help them be able to start their businesses and not be reliant on other people or the government, that they can stand on their own feet. So that was kind of what I wanted to do. 2020 election happened, and I realized after the election that the results didn't seem to match the sentiment that I saw all around my state. It just didn't add up. And I wanted to know what the truth was. We had half the country saying there's a problem, half the country saying there wasn't a problem. Both could not be true. And I was thirsty for what the truth was. I got an opportunity by a phone call.
And this was in Colorado, correct, Mark?
I was in Colorado, yeah. And I got a phone call asking if I'd go out to D.C. and help a group of people there figure out what happened with the election, find the fraud if there was fraud, and bring it to the table prior to January 6th.
How did they know to call you, Mark?
Well, I got a call from Nate Kane's father. And Nate Kane was the Uranium One whistleblower.
Oh, nice.
And I had met Nate at an event prior, I think a year or so prior, and met his family. So they knew who I was. I'm guessing they were thinking, who else can come out and help us with this? Thought of me and asked me if I'd come out. So that's how I got pulled into this. It was really just by chance. I can't say it's just by chance. Actually, it's a God thing, because everything that I have had happen, every door that's been opened for me, could not be an accident. Everything's got to be on purpose. And I know that God is just opening these doors and pointing me in that direction and expecting me to walk through them. So I've just been blindly walking through the doors as they show up in front of me on this journey. And it truly has been an incredible journey. I'm living in a trailer in parking lots, traveling county to county, when I used to sit in an office running an IT company. And this, for the past 6 months, I've been living and trying to work out of a trailer. Not in my wildest dreams did I ever expect to be in this situation. But what I saw when I went out to DC, I ended up living in a hotel for about 2 months with a group of people I had never met before and trying to find the fraud. What I saw in those 2 months is all that society, our country, is seeing now after 3 years, seeing and noticing all the corruption, how deep this really goes. I got most of that shoved into my face in a small 2-month period in November, December of 2020. So when I saw all that, I realized what situation we are really in and how dire it was. And I felt that my citizens deserved to know the truth about what was really going on, because the truth is, no one other than those playing in politics knew how deeply problematic our country was.
Do you think that politicians actually understand how deeply flawed the election management systems are across the country, or do you think they're blind to it as well?
I think some politicians absolutely do know, and I think some politicians don't know. and some people in the middle. They might think that there's an issue, but they don't realize the complexity of the total loss of control of the system. But it is in control of some people. That's the problem. It's in control of people that understand how to manipulate it. But the rest of us, just normal citizens, we don't have a chance to understand how the whole thing works because they want to keep it a secret. And if we don't know how it works, we won't be able to see anyone manipulating it. So that's their goal.
Right.
In complexity, you can hide all kinds of manipulation, especially if the peasants don't understand how the system works.
Well, Mark, you're anything but what we consider a normal person. You've noticed this right away, and you've been able to put enough together to start educating the rest of us that really are normal, in the sense that we're blind to what's really happening.
Well, I still feel I feel like I'm just a normal citizen. I just happen to be in IT and cybersecurity. So I've got that.
You're doing a very heroic thing, I would add.
Well, you've heard the phrase, "I have no more F's to give." When I realized how bad the situation was, I gave all mine away. And I know in my heart, and I have known in my heart, that I wanted to do something for the world. I had to leave my place on the world somehow. I didn't know quite what it was, 10 years ago and we all probably wonder this, what's our purpose here? What are we supposed to do? I knew it was something. I just didn't know what it was. So when these doors were opened and I had the knowledge and I guess somewhat unique ability to examine a complex system and see what the root cause of the problem is. Because of what I've done for years, is I've explained complex systems to people that don't understand them. As an IT person, that's what I've got to do. I've got to support clients that don't understand the complexities of the computer systems. And I've got to translate the complexities into something they can utilize as a tool for their business. So given those skills, it was a perfect fit to take and examine this complex election system and help my fellow citizens understand it. And then on a deeper level, I love citizens. I love people. I love souls. And I truly want there to be less hurt in the world. I don't like deception. I want people to be happy and work together for worldwide happiness and freedom. And so corrupted elections or manipulatable elections by people that are criminals and that are deceiving the public does not align with my methodology on how life should be. So it turned into my life's goal to take these criminal deceivers down so the good people in the world can enjoy the happiness they all deserve.
Well, that's good. I mean, I think you're doing it. I've seen it firsthand. So you got to Washington. You got a quick download. Where'd it go from there?
I tried to figure out how can I be most effective? How do I affect change in the world? And I tried, the federal level. We were feeding information to as many people as we could, trying to get it on up the ladder. And I don't know if anything ever went up the ladder until I saw a picture that was taken inside the White House, and a diagram that I had helped create was actually in the background, printed out on a huge piece of paper, hanging on the wall in the White House. So at least I was happy to know that something got there. And what I was trying to do is diagram the whole system out so people understood how it all worked, to be able to accurately determine where do we look to find the fraud. And I'm all about the truth. If there wasn't fraud, that's fine. Let's determine there's no fraud. But if there is fraud, let's identify the fraud and deal with it.
Which White House was that? I imagine it was Trump's White House, not Biden's.
It was Trump's White House. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Well, you mentioned the truth. That's what this show is about. We want to seek the truth here too. And sometimes the truth is really uncomfortable. But we want to have the ability, we want to encourage others that we have to accept the truth, the actual truth. We can't create our own truth. There is an absolute truth, and we have to learn to accept that. And so I think Roy and I are in complete agreement with you there.
So after DC, you were pushing information uphill, and you saw that one diagram, and then you completely switched gears and came back and started traveling.
Well, yeah, I started traveling because I realized that the public doesn't understand any of this. So there wasn't enough public pressure to change it, and half the country thought there was a problem, half the country still thought there wasn't a problem. So if everyone's on different pages, we're not going to get anywhere. We're just going to have two sides fighting with each other. And it wasn't just because they were confused or disagreed on that particular issue. The people, the cabal playing these games, did everything they could to divide the public in every way they possibly could think of over the years prior. So they were creating massive division across the board in order to divide the public as much as possible, because a divided public will never be able to fix a problem if everyone's at each other's necks and not listening to each other. So, I mean, this goes so deep into, the fifth generation warfare, essentially, that we are in right now, and the tactics these people are employing. People really need to understand how deep this is. This isn't just about elections. This isn't just about DEI and CRT. This is, a globalist elite that are attempting to enslave the population of the world. That's ultimately what it is.
Do you think that's directly tied to the World Economic Forum?
Of course.
Or yeah,
of course. All the pieces fit together. When you open your eyes, it's pretty easy to see it all. It's totally overwhelming. It makes you sick to your stomach, but all of a sudden, everything makes sense. The dots start connecting when you open your eyes enough to pay attention to it. And it's scary, but just because it's scary doesn't mean we shouldn't be noticing it. We shouldn't look at it. And it doesn't mean we can't fix it either. This is a small group of people that are trying to control a huge group of people. And as soon as the huge group of people open their eyes, game over. So my intention is to help open people's eyes with what I know, so we can get to a solution. So I started traveling the country, doing presentations state to state to try to plant seeds of information about how the system really works, and give people an idea of, here are the things you should look for to see if there is fraud in your area. Here are the problems I see, with the election system. The fact that it's incredibly complex. It's a multitude of different types of systems. And all of it is so far removed from the citizens' view and control. We don't stand a chance. In fact, our own election officials can barely see and control the system that they're supposed to manage.
At least the election officials that we met, they may be well-meaning people. They are generally. We have not met one person who means to do harm, at least that we can tell. And unfortunately, they don't have the kind of systems background that's actually necessary to be able to put these pieces together in a way that would prevent the types of issues that you've identified when you were in Washington.
Absolutely.
They just can't do it. They're being taken advantage of.
They are, and they're being lied to also. That's what really pisses me off. I mean, you can be ignorant or not knowledgeable on security or cybersecurity or complex systems. That's one thing. But when you have a group of people actually lying to our election officials, who are blindly believing the people that hired them and that they, quote unquote, work for, then they are in turn lying to the citizens. Can you imagine how frightening it must be to be an election official that would start to even doubt what they've been told? Because if they have to realize, even internally, that they have lied to their citizens or to their family and to their friends, that would be one of the most frightening things, I think, for anyone to have to go through. I feel so bad for our elections being put into this situation, this position, where they may have to realize that they were lied to and pass those lies on.
Well, we ran into that frequently in talking with particularly county clerks. They're petrified about their job properly and not having the tools to adequately do it. Didn't we, Roy? All over the state. I mean,
it's interesting. The chief person who runs our elections is the lieutenant governor here in Utah. And she does not have your background, Mark. And I believe she has really no idea. Maybe she'll learn. And like you said, I think at some point, we met one county clerk who was in Emery County. I don't know whether you ever met him when you were here, Mark. His name is Bruce Funk. He was one of the first clerks to actually implement, it was a Diebold system back in 2002 or 3, 4. I can't remember. But Bruce went in and started to look at the system and went, oh my God, this thing is just completely off. And then he was basically forced out of his job, because he was forced out of his job. He was like the original Tina Peters.
Yeah.
He was like the original Tina Peters. He's still alive, and we talk to him, and we actually bring him to some of our meetings. But you're right. It's these people don't have any clue, and they resist. It becomes like a willful blindness because they actually don't want to wake up, because if they were to actually understand what you understand and explain it, they would all of a sudden realize, oh my God, I've been lied to, and I've been lying to other people, and I'm now complicit. And the natural human reaction at that point in time is to dig deeper. For many people, it's to dig deeper, unlike this guy, Bruce Funk or Tina Peters.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of people will just dig their heels in.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, a lot of people will just dig their heels in. And I'm sure they're also told that, go along with us and we'll protect you. But if you question us, we won't protect you. And then these things could happen to you. And I'm sure they're scared. And they did, I feel the whole Tina thing really pisses me off, because Tina Peters.
People listening, could you describe a little bit about where Tina Peters is going, or what's happened to Tina?
Absolutely. Yeah. So Tina Peters is a grandma. She is a Gold Star mom. She lost her Navy SEAL son in a parachute accident. I mean, she is an all-American woman and loves her country. She was an entrepreneur, retired, and wanted to give back to her community. She saw that her DMV lines were 3 hours long, and she was not comfortable with that. And she thought, well, gosh, if I run for clerk, I can fix that. I can make this more efficient. So she ran to be clerk, like any of us might think to do. And she ran elections for a bit. She thought she was running perfect elections because she followed all of the instructions given to her by the Secretary of State and by the vendor. And she veered from him. She got all of the things that she was supposed to get at the end of all the testing, quote unquote, that she went through and did. The 2020 election happened. The whole world is questioning that, but everything went kind of normal in her county, and she crossed all the T's and dotted all her I's, so she didn't think there was a problem. Then they had a municipal election happen just after the 2020 election. They had an all-conservative city council. It was a heavy conservative city as well. And in this city council election, toward the end of the election, one of the representatives for one of the liberal candidates running against one of the conservative incumbents came up to Tina and told Tina before the end of the election that their candidate won, and by how many votes they won by. And Tina, being the clerk, she knew that the results had not even been pulled, and she was the only person that could pull the results from the system. So how on earth does this other candidate rep know that their candidate won, and how would they ever know by how many votes they won by? So she shrugged it off her shoulders, and they finished the rest of the tabulation, pulled the results, and sure enough, that candidate did win, and they won by that many votes. And then she got real scared that how on earth did someone know this information before I even knew it? And this information's in my system. How did they get it? So she started questioning things. Well, it gets a lot worse. Not only did that one liberal candidate beat the conservative candidate, but the entire city council was swept by all liberal candidates. And this is not a D versus R thing. This is just something that doesn't make sense. Conservative city, all conservative city council, everyone liked it.
This was in Grand Junction, correct?
Grand Junction, Mesa County, Colorado. They're all running for re-election. They all lost. And liberal candidates won, swept the whole thing. And one of the liberal candidates had just moved there 3 months prior. No one knew who these people were. They barely campaigned, yet they swept it. So the citizens don't understand how this just happened. So they start calling in to the clerk's office asking, what happened with the election? Clearly something went wrong. What went wrong? What did you do? There's no way this could happen. There's no way this could be true. And so Tina said, don't worry. I've got the ballots. We'll just recount them. It's not a big deal. We will make sure. I will make sure to take care of the double checking all of this. If it's wrong, we'll make it right. So as she's getting ready to do that recount, she gets, I believe it was an email or letter from the Secretary of State and the voting system vendor saying that they needed to install updates to the voting system. And she was a little concerned. She asked, what updates are you going to install? I'm in the middle of possibly doing a recount. And they said they have to install an update to get rid of the QR code on the software. The problem was all her ballots had QR codes on them. So she was worried that if they turn off the QR code feature, how on earth is she going to recount all those ballots that are now in this contentious city council race? So they said, we're doing it. She couldn't put them off. So she decided to take a backup of the system to make sure that she retained everything properly. So in case they did something that would inhibit her from being able to recount that election and figure out what happened, she'd be able to use the backup that she had and rerun it through the backup. But her county IT staff refused to take a backup because it wasn't their system, because it would belong to the voting system vendor, Dominion. So she hired a third party to come in, take the image of the
right there, Mark, because I've always wondered about this. When they refused, do you think that the IT staff knew what was going on and they said, no, I'm not going to take a backup? Or is it because I would think that an IT staff that works for a county would say, okay, I can go and take a forensic image of the disk and do all this other stuff because it's just computer equipment. But what made them, in your mind, say, I'm not going to take a backup?
I don't know what their thought process was.
Okay.
What I can tell you is if I was the IT staff, if I was county IT and a clerk asked me to take a backup of a voting system, first of all, I'm not going to do anything that would cause me to cause a legal problem for the county. I wouldn't want to do that, or a legal problem for me. So I would probably think, okay, can I legally do this?
Okay.
And if I did it, would it cause would it cause a problem? I wouldn't know as IT staff. I wouldn't know who owns the equipment, who does data belong to, et cetera. So I can see why they might have been concerned.
Okay. And not necessarily being nefarious.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. They could have just been covering their butts and being careful.
Yep.
Very well. Now, as I've looked into all these other states and seen all this now, knowing what I know now, if I was county IT staff and this was a county election system that the county purchased, I absolutely would have taken the image myself, now knowing what I know.
Okay.
But I don't know if they, I don't know how much they dug in at the time. I have no idea. But I know, she was in a hurry to get it done because the Secretary of State and the voting system vendor were demanding to get it done, their updates. So she had a third party come in, take a forensic backup of the system, which definitely, does not harm the system in any way. It's just an exact duplicate, bit by bit copy of the system, which is the best possible backup you could take. And in fact, should be done automatically anytime any update is done. You should always have an exact snapshot in time of the system prior to the update. And really what they should have done is they should have pulled I'm talking about they as in the voting system vendor and the Secretary of State. They're going to install an update on something. They should have taken the hard drives out, labeled all of them, and handed them to Tina saying, here are your hard drives. dated this and retain these so you can uphold your obligation to retain those records for the 25 months that you have to.
Mm-hmm.
And they should have installed new hard drives and done everything on new hard drives instead. That would have been the best way to retain it. But they didn't. What they did instead is they just overwrote all the hard drives in the voting system, therefore wiping out all the log files and all the records and all the databases. So had Tina not taken a backup of it prior, she would not have had any of that information.
And now she's being prosecuted for that.
Yeah. And so when they came up to do this story, and remember,
go ahead, Mark. Just continue with what did they do when they came in exactly?
Yeah, so they were going to just turn off a QR code feature. That was their intent. And that's what they said they were going to do. But what they did was they kicked Tina out of the office, kicked all of her employees out of the office, and then they covered up all the windows so no one could see inside the office.
I remember seeing that in Georgia.
Well, and they weren't just there. If you're doing a routine update, of course you would tape up all the windows.
Well, they didn't even tell her it's an update. They just said they're turning the QR code feature off. So how long does it take to turn off a feature on your phone or your computer? You know,
well, when I update my computer, I make sure I tape up all my windows.
Right. You know? It's absurd. So they're there for 2 solid days. 2 teams of people are there for 2 days doing something to the voting system with the windows covered. So if you were a clerk, wouldn't you be a little concerned? Of course. Who wouldn't be? Right? I'd wonder. I'd clearly say, okay, well, these guys clearly are doing something more than just turning off a QR code feature.
And they're doing that.
I wouldn't have let them kick me out of the office, really. I would have called the sheriff.
With the vendor and with the Secretary of State's office.
Yeah. It smells real bad.
She's in on it.
It smells bad. Oh, yeah, of course she is. So they leave at the end of the 2 days and say, okay, you can come back in now. And Tina, very, very smart. What she did is she had another image taken immediately after they left. So now she's got an image before they walked in the door and an image right after they walked out the door. And she knew that if someone looked at the differences between the before and the after image, we could find out, did they really just turn a QR code feature off or did they do something a little extra? And I was on the forensic team to examine those images, which is another door that God opened for me. And I got to see it all with my own eyes. And I saw what they did. And they absolutely wiped the hard drives. They wiped all the log files. They wiped the databases. They covered their tracks, or tried to. And they didn't know Tina had a before image. So they did all this, wiping all this stuff. And then when they found out that Tina had taken an image backup of the system, I think that same day they went up to Grand Junction and raided her office and confiscated every piece of electronics they could get their hands on.
But they did, and they missed. Hopefully, they missed that those images.
The images were already in the hands of the attorneys.
Good.
But they didn't know that. They thought the images were still there in the office, most likely, because why would you just raid an office and take all the computers? You know, that would be ridiculous to do unless they were trying to make sure that some information didn't get out somewhere. And then you have to question, well, why would they be so concerned about information getting out? If these things just count dots on a piece of paper, what's the big secret?
Yeah, it's crazy. Hey, everybody, this is Stephen Roy. We're with Mark Cook today. And in about 5 or 10 minutes, we're going to start taking calls. You guys can ask us or Mark any questions relative to our elections. And that number is 385-899-2134. 385-899-2134. We're here with Mark Cook today, who basically dedicated his life to figuring out what's going on with our elections, where they're cheating, and he has a wealth of information. So, Mark, after that experience, where does the Tina Peters thing stand right now?
I believe her court case is coming up next month, I believe. Either later this month or first part of February. And yeah, instead of Well, let me back up just a little bit. So not only did I find they wiped all the records, but I also found that their voting system, this voting system, Dominion, the version I looked at, which is 5.11 and 5.13, the before and the after, have 2 back doors into the voting system that allows someone to flip the votes, change any votes you want, change any ballots you want, right in the back door into the database directly without it being trackable, traced, or leaving any history of it happening. And that right there really upset me, because this company has told us their system cannot flip votes. It cannot physically flip votes from one candidate to another when there are 2 back doors in the system, at least 2 back doors that allow that to happen. And in fact, there's a lot more security issues that I found on these systems, far and above just these 2 back doors that I located, which, by the way, apparently the testing companies missed them and the certification companies certified it despite that. And this information about at least one of the back doors has been in existence since 2014. So it's not like this was something that I just happened to find. Even worse, one of the back doors you can find just by clicking buttons on the start menu. It's only a few mouse clicks. It's right there. It's not even hidden. It's right out there in the open. And that's the big secret they didn't want the citizens of this country to know.
That's crazy. It's absolutely insane.
And of course, when these elections are done, the county clerk does a report, hands it to the board of canvassers, and the board of canvassers, quote, certify the results. But those board of canvassers, I mean, first of all, it's a county clerk who is producing all the report. They don't, I mean, Tina Peters was, very thoughtful in that she went and made the copy of these hard drives and so on and hired experts to go do it. But most clerks don't do that. They don't have the expertise themselves to be able to check that. And then they're producing a report that's going to the board of canvassers, and those guys are certifying. What does it mean to even certify? It's nothing. They can't do anything. They can't do any due diligence.
Right. And everyone thinks that it's all about the security of the systems. The problem is it's multifaceted. So one of the problems with the systems themselves are, if you had a crooked clerk or a crooked election staff or a crooked janitor or someone that has physical access in some capacity to these systems, they could in effect change the results of election without anyone knowing. Even the clerk wouldn't know. And that's what frightens me the most. And the system is set up in a way to make that easy. And it's either set up that way intentionally, or these are the worst programmers ever and have no clue about making a secure voting system. And that, I don't think that second option is realistic.
That's that was going to be my question.
They knew exactly what they were
plausible
doing.
Explanation. I mean, they know the systems are supposed to be secure. It's a voting system. So they can't claim, oh, we didn't know it needed to be secure.
No,
so the only option it really leaves is it's intentionally set up like that. And the clerks, they don't know this. They don't know how to manipulate this stuff. I mean, and some of them may, but the thing is, they don't have to know how, because it's set up in a way that someone could just program a USB drive and hand it to the clerk, and the clerk plugs it in thinking they're just transferring results from one system to another. And what's on the USB drive could actually flip the votes in the server. So they could actually use unknowing election staff as a Trojan horse.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the frightening thing, that the delivery mechanism for the manipulation could be the very people that are supposed to keep it secure in the first place. And these people may have no idea it's being done.
Is it possible to do it from off-site?
It could, absolutely.
How does that work exactly?
Well, I mean, there's so many different ways technically that it could be done because of how open the systems are. I mean, this company, in their installation program, it even opens holes in the firewall on the computer to make it even more vulnerable. That's part of the installation program. So it didn't happen by
you would have to, the programmer, the person writing the code, the Dominion or ESNS or whatever it is, would have to deliberately do that, because that requires a lot of skill to be able to say, I'm going to open up the firewall. Right?
Oh, no, it's not skill. It's actually really simple. They just wrote the code in part of the installer to open the hole in the firewall.
No, but my point is, even writing the code so that the installer did that on purpose shows intent to.
It's intentional. It's not difficult, but it is intentional. Absolutely. It wasn't an accident.
That's my point. It's intentional. And when you go and look at criminal activity, there's things where you do, oh, it's just an accident, right?
No, there's no way to.
It's like manslaughter versus murder.
It was intentional code that they put in, and it wasn't just one port they opened. They opened a lot of ports in it, and they can't claim that, oh, well, we just, we didn't open them carefully and we accidentally left it open to the whole internet. No, because some of them they closed down and some of them they didn't. So it was all intentional. They can't be this bad of programmers. And if they are this bad, then they should have no business creating voting system software.
You mentioned Dominion. What are the other systems that you've really looked at carefully?
I haven't had an inside look in any of the other systems, other than I looked a little bit of Unison, but I can't get into any details on that, unfortunately.
Okay. Incidentally, Salt Lake County, largest county in Utah, uses Dominion machines exclusively. The other counties within Utah use ESNS, and then there's one or two other counties that use, I'm not even sure, some obscure voting machine.
Might be, I think it's Unisys.
Is it Unisys?
Yeah. When you say you can't get it,
Unison. Hold on, I can check it. I've got it here for you.
Well, you're checking. We're going to open
here. Show my screen. I can show you that. This is from Verified Voting. It's a fantastic website. And there's who's doing what here. So there's your ESNS and Dominion share. And I believe this is based on population. So Dominion, even though it's one county, at least for the November 24, the projection is it will count the votes for 32% of the citizens in the state of Utah from one county.
Yeah, that's the county that we're sitting in right now.
Yeah, it truly is.
Yep. The interesting thing about all this is all the counties that have the most question in the results all seem to be running Dominion.
Huh. How interesting.
Really?
I don't know that that's a coincidence.
We are going to open up the phone lines now to anyone that would like to call in and ask Mark a question. That number is 385-899-2134. I know there's a lot of you out there that have a lot of questions. Now's your chance to talk to Mark Cook. Mark, do you have a way that, well, I know you do, but can you give the way in which people can access your information to look at your full presentation? Because we certainly don't have enough time on our program to do that, but
absolutely. So that's handcountroadshow.org.
Okay, handcountroadshow.org.
Yeah, and that will have, if you scroll, go to that. I'll explain what Hand Count Roadshow is. I'll go back a little bit here on that. So when I tried this at the federal level, I just couldn't get people to listen, pay attention, understand, and affect any change. I then tried this on the state level. I figured Texas would be a great place to start. I was invited by an election integrity group down to the Capitol, and I spent about a month at the Capitol in Texas meeting with legislators on both sides and attempted to explain the problem. And they were actually extremely receptive. Almost every single person I talked to, even Democrats, that you would think would be against election integrity, actually wore it. They understood what I was talking about, and they're interested in finding a solution. And a lot of them asked for bills to be written. And we spent some time and wrote bills, passed them all on, and every single bill got killed in committee. A whole bunch of time was put into it, and they all got killed.
That's why we're getting elected.
That's why Roy and I have to run for office, Mark. We can't get anybody to carry our bill. We do have a caller.
Let's go there first.
You ready to take a call, Mark?
Sure.
Her name is Lori. And
hi, guys. I have Lori on.
Okay.
I'm going to drop her in. Okay.
Patch her in.
Go ahead, Lori.
Great. Hi, Steve. Hey, Roy. Hey, Mark. Good seeing you all on there. I actually have two questions. I'll ask them, and then I'll let you answer them. So the first one is going to be for Roy and Steve. Lori with Wellness Crusaders. So why do you think the people of Utah are still somewhat oblivious to what is happening and what Mark is exposing? And then the second follow-up question is for Mark, because he's doing this tremendous work, and I've seen what he is doing. Basically, we hosted him. Where's the progress? Is there anyone, any state, any county stepping up to the plate?
Okay. Thank you, Lori, for those questions. I have my own opinion about the people in Utah. I think that by and large, the people in Utah are a very, very good people. And I think that they're a very trusting people, and they want to believe in authority. With their religious background, many of them, they have a high regard for authority, especially religious authority. And I believe that I'm including myself in this, that we tend to be more gullible here in Utah, that we tend to be more trusting. There's a reason that the multi-level marketing is so prevalent here in Utah, is because people are easily taken advantage of because they want to believe. They want to believe the best in people. And they find it hard to believe that there are so many people out there with bad intent. But there are, and that's starting to come to light. And I think that people in Utah are finally starting to wake up to the fact.
I agree with Steve. I learned when I was in graduate school in business that Utah was the Ponzi scheme capital of the world. But I think it's not unique to Utah. I think that Mark was saying this before. There are so many people out there that want to do the right thing, and they're given this instruction manual, and they're told this is how you're going to have to run your election. And people think, well, how hard could it be to run an election? And after the work that we've done, at least Steve and I have done, it's very hard to run an election, particularly when it's made as complicated as it is with mail-in ballots and all these different ways of voting. It's incredibly difficult. And at some point, when people do start to realize that there are big problems, it's this visceral fear, that's this reaction, and they don't want to confront it. And we're hopeful that if we don't shut up and we keep pushing this, and people like Mark keep doing what he's doing, that we will wake up people, and more people will say, hey, maybe there is a problem here, and they'll start to listen. But it's going to take a while, because people, as Steve was saying, want to believe the best.
I think Lori had a second part for Mark.
Yep. And Mark, the question for Mark was?
Yeah, I got it. It's have I had an effect? What is anything changing? Is it so?
And which states? Because I'm curious about that too.
I know that I've planted a lot of seeds, and I'm not the only one out there. There are a tremendous amount of amazing patriots, citizens out there, on both sides, Democrats and Republicans, that are fighting for fair elections. The citizens all deserve fair, transparent, auditable, verifiable elections. If we can't verify our election, we cannot have trust in it. what the other side tries to convince everyone is that they need to trust their election. You have to trust your election, trust your election, trust your election. Well, that's called forcing blind trust in an election. Why would we want to do that? Why don't we have verified, earned trust in an election? If someone tells me to trust something, I'm not going to trust it. I'm sorry. But if it's so open that I can verify it and that trust can be earned, then I'll trust it. So what we should be doing is, instead of expecting the citizens to blindly trust their elections, we should be making sure the elections are transparent enough that the citizens can verify every component of the elections and the trust can be earned. So that's been my message. And I do know that as I travel from state to state, county to county, my helping people understand what the ecosystem of our election systems looks like, how it works, what the vulnerabilities are, and what the short-term and long-term mitigation steps are to fix this problem, to put the elections back into the hands of the citizens. I know that the seeds that I'm leaving are starting to germinate and grow into some trees. We got some bushes growing, and I think we're starting to grow into some trees in some states that people are realizing how they need to affect the system, because now they know how it works, and that's really important.
Yeah, I wanted to add one more thing to that, Lori. I really suspect that there's a problem with the system when, in Utah's case, the lieutenant governor spends a lot of money and goes out of her way to take out billboards and other types of media and ads to tell us how great our elections are and how secure they are, and that we don't need to worry here, that we're the gold standard here. And they've really gone to great lengths to tell us how much integrity they have. When somebody does that, you automatically think that the opposite is really true.
You should, at least. That should be sign number one. That should be red flag for everyone in your state, that if your government is telling you to blindly trust them, they should immediately question everything that government is telling them. And by the way, you guys are not the only gold standard. Colorado also thinks they're the gold standard. And the gold standard is language that most likely was disseminated to all secretaries of state to be able to plant the coordinated narrative across the country. Here's how you manipulate your citizens into having blind trust in your elections.
It reminds me, it reminds me of, if you turn on CNN, MSNBC, and all the other shows, they have the exact same talking points, almost every day.
Verbatim.
Yep. I've always wondered who that guy was that calls them all up and says, okay, here's what we're going to say today. And they say it verbatim. And so we do have 50 states now that are the gold standard, right?
I don't know if I haven't heard gold standard in all 50, but I do hear it from time to time. I go to a state and they tell me, oh, yeah, our system is the gold standard.
Yeah.
Because they're not hearing the messaging in these other states, so they don't realize it. That's why the cabal did not want any of us sharing any information. They didn't want any of us talking, because if we start talking and comparing notes, all of a sudden we realize the cabal is full of crap.
Hey, Mark, we actually have another caller, Jill, who clearly wants to talk with you, I'm sure. But we'll patch her through right now.
Cool.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Jill, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you guys? Okay. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Jill.
Thank you. Your show's great. How are you?
Good to hear from you.
Yeah, well, exciting show. It's great that we finally got this off the ground. And really, my question is for Mark. So, one of the things that I learned in business is the money's always in the follow-up. And I just wanted to say to Mark, now that we've got, you came here to the state, we hit 10 counties out of the 29, and we got some momentum going. I'm going to get a whole group together again. And I was just curious, Mark,
what is probably that? I know you've talked about these a little bit, but could you share with the audience what the next best steps is for the group to start doing that we can do to try to start chipping away at getting a more fair election?
I can. There's a lot to that answer. I'll give you the short answer to that. We have to be able to verify every aspect of our elections, or we cannot trust them. There's legislation set up. What was that?
I said I absolutely agree.
Oh, yep. And there's a lot of legislation set up that prohibits us from doing so. And it channelizes a lot of us, including election officials, into using systems that don't allow us to be able to verify every aspect of this. And it is not just the election systems themselves, the tabulators, the entire system from the voter registration, the voter validation, the electronic poll books, the tabulators, and the reporting system. All of it has been captured. All of it has been taken from the citizens. So we got to fix it all. So there's a different short-term strategy than the long-term strategy. The short-term strategy right now is we need to be able to see everything that's going on in our elections. So everyone needs to get involved. Everyone needs to be there. Everyone's got to understand how the election system works, so they understand how to find and detect it being abused. So if you don't understand how it works, if you didn't understand the rules of the game, you're not going to be a very good player. So you've got to understand. Right. You've got to understand this stuff. So, watch my presentation for sure, because I'll give you that information, understand how the whole thing works. Then get involved, take part in it, keep your eyes open. We've got to report problems with the elections. There are reporting systems set up. I can help people with that as well, and start being proactive about things. Don't let things happen and then try to deal with them after the fact. Being reactive is not an efficient use of resources. We've watched what the cabal has done year after year, especially with 2020, 2022. We know what they do. So we better be ready for it in 24 and to catch it. And I'm not saying we need to be manipulating elections. I would never advocate for that at all. I want a fair, honest, open, transparent election.
That's what
I
we
want every single vote to count. I don't care if it's a Democrat vote, a Republican vote, independent vote. I don't care. I just want every one of our citizens' votes to count and to represent the voice of the public, period. I do not want any part of the system to be able to be manipulated. So
we agree 100%. And Democrat, Republican, this is not a political or a partisan issue. It is an American issue, and I think 99+% of the people agree with what you just said.
Absolutely. And then Mark, vote on election day, in person, on paper. Mail-in ballots were used to manipulate elections on a massive scale. That is why the huge push for mail-in ballots. That's why the cabal is crazy about mail-in ballots.
Right.
They are absolutely obsessed with mail-in ballots. There's a reason. That's not an accident. So we need to get rid of mail-in ballots. Of course, we still need some absentee for the people that cannot be there, and they should have a very good reason. And those, because when you have an absentee ballot, it endangers the system. It makes it much more vulnerable. So you have to employ many more checks and balances to validate every ballot that comes in that is not being filled out by a person physically there. So you have to employ a lot more checks and balances there. We need to make sure that all of our disabled can absolutely vote. So there has to be provisions for them. We're not leaving a single one of them behind. And we need to take part in that counting process. So vote in person on election day. If you get a mail-in ballot, do not use it. You guys in Utah, I believe, can file a request to opt out of the mail-in ballot system. And you need to do that. You need to go to your Secretary of State or Lieutenant Governor's site.
That's such a hard thing, though, for people because they've made it so convenient. They've made people lazy. We do have another caller, Mark. Before we get to that caller, give out your information again. I want people to have ample opportunity to write down how they can access your information, your website.
Sure. Yeah, throw my screen up
Jill,
there.
you want before Mark? Go ahead and say goodbye, Jill, and I'm going to pick up another call. Go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to say goodbye. Thank you, you guys. Thank you, Mark, for coming to the state of Utah. Thank you, Steve and Roy, for the show. And Mark, I'll reach out to you so we can find some of the things, the legislation, if they've blocked us, what things we can do. We're going to get organized with the team and round up everybody and get them dialed in again. So thank you.
You got it. Thank you for everything, Jill.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you. It was good to hear from you. Go ahead and give that out, Mark, and then we'll jump on the other caller.
Sure. That's handcountroadshow.org. That's the effort I realized we needed to do, or I needed to do, is just go out county to county, talk to my fellow citizens directly, rather than trying to wade through social media. And of course, mainstream media won't touch this at all. But going out and actually talking to people face to face is so much more effective. And I'm enjoying doing it. It's not an easy life by any means. It's very difficult, not fun living in parking lots out of a trailer. But I love and am energized by meeting all of my fellow citizens across this country.
Well, I hope you're in a warm state. I hope you're in a warm state right now because I'm looking out the window and it's an absolute blizzard outside. So handcountroadshow.org or .com?
.org, O-R-G.
handcountroadshow.org. And we have another caller on the line. Dwayne?
Let me unmute myself. Yeah. I'm talking away and nothing's happening. I have Tyler on the line. He's got some things to say and a couple of questions. Here you go.
Hi, Tyler.
Go ahead, Tyler.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing all right. So, this last local election that we had here, I was looking at my local city's website to see when in-person voting was. Had a bunch of dates for mail-in voting, nothing for in-person. Looked at the state Utah GOP's website for the voting date, and they actually had the wrong date on there.
Probably not an accident.
When is somebody going to be arrested for that? Because I heard about the guy on Twitter who tweeted the wrong date, and he was arrested and convicted. So when are we going to have some accountability here?
That's a good question. I hope it's coming, but we got to shine a light on things before there's going to be accountability. And these people, they know all the games to play. They know how to disguise things they do on purpose to look like accidents. They're very, very good at that. There aren't that many accidents. There aren't that many mistakes out there. They are most likely all intentional, and they don't want to play by the same rules.
Hey, Tyler,
so,
I have a question because you're obviously a Utahn. Were you looking at the state's website, or were you GOP website, or were you looking at
the GOP website?
Yeah,
and I believe the date they had on there was the 29th of November.
Right, but was it the Salt Lake County or was it the state GOP?
State GOP.
Yeah. See, I know the county well, Steve and I both know the county GOP, Chris Null, and I can tell you that he would be horrified if I would think that if it was the county GOP website, that he would be horrified. So I don't think it's him.
Right.
But that is very unfortunate. And, as Mark was mentioning, or actually it was Steve mentioning, we've gotten so used to mail-in ballots here. I think it's like 80% or so of our ballots are theoretically cast by mail. So
yeah,
I'm telling you, that's how they're doing it to you in that state. That's how they're doing it. You've got to get out of that. You guys, as a state, should opt out. Everyone should opt out of your mail-in ballots. That should be your campaign right now. Is opt
right
out
now. It's something that Jill actually said, and it's something that Steve and I are pushing as part of legislation. Right now, it says that the county clerk may. What's the word? May.
Well, no. It says shall. The wording is the county clerk shall conduct the elections primarily by mail. And a simple word change has been asked for, to change shall to may. And then they won't even do that. They won't even.
That's a ridiculous statement. Shall conduct it primarily by mail. How would that ever be enforceable or controllable? That's a ridiculous statement. They can't control the citizens opting out in mass. It's not up to the clerk.
You're correct, but when we talk to, for example, and I know you visited Box Elder County, and we were talking to the clerk up there, and he wants to go to, in-person paper ballots, and he's like, it's very hard to buck the state, and I think this language reflects that difficulty.
Yeah, but that's not even enforceable. There's no way you could say you didn't primarily do this. It's not up to the clerk. It's up to the citizens how they choose to vote. So if they all opt out, the clerk can't control a whole bunch of people going in person.
That I agree with, but the clerk would be very instrumental in pushing people to vote that way. And what we've seen here in Utah County, I don't know whether you ever met Bill Lee when you were here. He was the county clerk in
no, he was a commissioner.
Yeah, he was a commissioner, and therefore on the board of canvassers. We have a video of him at the county commission meeting saying, I have to certify this election, and it's a rubber stamp. I can't even get access to it. And he was threatened with legal action by the lieutenant governor. And I know that
happens all the time. They're doing it all over the place. They are forcing clerks to certify under duress. And so what clerks should do is say, absolutely not. I'm not certifying. If everyone together did not certify when they had reason not to certify, you can't just not certify because you don't want to certify.
Right.
You have to have reason. If you don't have something, an election that you can trust that should be certified, they should not be certifying. Have some courage. And at the worst case, if you don't have the courage and you're going to certify, even though you don't want to certify, then they better very clearly state that they are certifying under duress.
And basically that's what Bill Lee did.
Okay.
He said, I'm certifying, but basically I'm forced to.
But here's the quandary.
I would say under duress. Add that, because what's going to happen here is we are going to hold everyone accountable that is illegally, unconstitutionally forcing people to lie when they should not have to. When it's their decision, everyone's going to be held accountable for what they're doing here. So let them dig their hole deeper, and we'll keep track of every single person, and we're going to hold every single one of you accountable.
I want to come back to that, but putting myself in the shoes of a county commissioner and they're on the board of canvassers, and this is a part-time job. A lot of the guys that we've met are farmers, and I mentioned Bruce Funk earlier, and he could not afford. He was threatened with legal action, and he said, these people, I couldn't afford to defend myself. They were going to bankrupt me. So you have the full weight of the state coming down on these people to do what they think is the wrong thing, and they personally could end up getting bankrupted by doing so.
And so as a result, they're forced to resign.
They're forced to resign or to serve.
They choose to.
Well, they choose to, yeah, because they're conflicted. They're conflicted when their family members.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I understand they're human beings, and that one of the changes that we're seeking to get into this law is that somebody in Utah can choose not to certify if they choose not to if they find something that's wrong, and they can't be pressured. In other words, they have immunity. They have immunity if they certify something that they feel is wrong, and after the fact, they, in good faith, they decided not to certify something. On the flip side, if they certify something and they did it knowingly, knowing something was wrong, then they should be held accountable and legally accountable. So that's what we're trying to put. One of the things we're trying to put in the law here locally.
Hey, Tyler, are you still there? Tyler? Well, we want to say thanks.
Tyler had to go, but I thanked him. So
yes, thank you for doing that. I didn't want to ignore him and wanted to know if he had any further questions.
But Mark, how do you see holding people accountable that are? I mean, I heard about that thing in Pima County in Arizona where the county clerk, or it was a member of the board of canvassers, just did not want to certify the election, and he was threatened by the now governor with legal action if he did not certify. So how do you actually hold that person accountable for forcing him to certify?
That's, I mean, one way, and I don't want our country to go there.
Okay, how do we do it legally? How would you change the law?
I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. But here's what I do know. There's 350 million of us. There's a very small number of them. If they truly want to play chicken, I don't think they're going to come out on top. And I think we have no choice for the country to do this legally. If there are these people, you have to understand this. They're not like just normal citizens that happen to disagree with us. A lot of these people are criminals. They don't care. And now
I would argue that everyone is.
They are the judges. They are the prosecutors. So they have to answer to, at least they think they have to answer to no one. But what they don't seem to understand is they work for us. And if we don't start acting like that, they are going to continue walking all over us. They have the power we allow them to have.
I agree with you 100%. And for me, that brings us right back to the Constitution and what the Constitution says, and how we as a people are very ignorant of what our rights are, our God-given rights. We've given it away freely and ignorantly, and we need to get that back. And the first way to get that back is to find out what our rights are, what our inalienable rights are. They're the rights from God. And if there is no God in the equation, then government tries to be God, and that just doesn't work. And we need to educate people and re-inform them or inform them initially, because I'm not even sure that's taught in school anymore, anything about the Constitution and people don't know what their rights are because they've given them away.
Yeah, it all comes back to our Constitution, and we have to be able to enforce our Constitution, and apparently that's what our Supreme Court's supposed to do. So I think everything's going to eventually go there, and citizens are going to have to enforce our Constitution.
Right, and I hate to see the Constitution being left in the hands of the Supreme Court and their interpretation of it.
So Jill asked a question, and Mark, it was a question that I thought, oh, that's a good question. I'd like to hear it too. You've gone all over. Which states have you gone to in your journeys? And where do you see the most movement? Where the most hope?
Well, let me see if I can pull my list up here. Let's see.
And we could share your screen again if it's on your webpage.
Well, for the road show, that doesn't have all the states I've personally been to. I can pull that up here. Just gotta find it in all my windows here.
Well, I know that in Utah, for example, you just went to a bunch of different counties. So like the states where you've really gone and done like the kind of drive-through like you did here in Utah, I'm sure.
Go ahead and I can show you that on the screen here. Let me switch back over.
And by the way, for everyone, you can access Mark's website by going to handcountroadshow.org. handcountroadshow.org. And we're still taking calls. So please call in and ask a question to Mark, 385-899-2134.
I'm just kind of cycling through. I did about 3 or 4 months in Texas, 1 month in Utah. I'm going to do Arizona next, and then New Mexico, and then head out east. So I'll just kind of quickly scroll through here.
You might want to go through like Louisiana, Mississippi, and those states and stay south for a little while. Because if you go east, it's kind of messy and cold.
I'm okay with messy. I have no problem with that. I mean, ultimately, we have to save the country. That's it. We have to make sure that our election system works properly. If we fix our election system, now let me change that. When we fix our election system, we can start repairing everything else.
So how do you see, I mean, I know you're no Houdini or anything, and none of us can predict accurately, but it just seems like we're running out of time for this 2024 election cycle. What do you think?
I think we are running out of time. I think not enough people got active soon enough. I don't think they got organized soon enough. One, because there was this huge amount of fear perpetrated upon them. There was division created everywhere. There were all these types of attacks all over the place. So there were a lot of roadblocks in the way as well. And there were a lot of infighting. It's an amazing amount of infighting in some of the states. It's pretty ridiculous and just wasted valuable resources that we really needed to use more wisely. I still think we're going to be okay if we get organized and we get out there and vote. I mean, I believe if we have 80+% of the vote, it will be too much for them to overcome with manipulation. So if we do nothing to fix anything other than get out and vote like crazy in person, I think that alone may be enough. But what we need to do is that plus everything else that we can affect. These people are scared. They are desperate. They know what's going on. They wouldn't be trying to remove a candidate from the ballot if they thought there was no chance he could win.
Right.
If Biden was so popular that he got all those, 81 million votes, why are they so worried then? If Biden's so much more popular than Trump, why are they wasting an ounce of time trying to remove him off the ballot? What does that tell you?
Well, they're scared.
We know
they're scared to death.
Of course they are. Of course they are. And they should be, because the country knows what's going on. And if they're going to attempt to steal another election, which they've been doing for far more than since 2020. They've been manipulating elections for decades. If anyone has not read the book Vote Scam, go buy the book Vote Scam, VOTESCAM. It will enlighten you as to the problems, quote unquote, of the elections in our country for decades and decades and decades in the past. And you'll realize that we are just living Groundhog Day, that our elections have been manipulated in a number of different ways by a lot of people over the decades. And we are just all opening our eyes and realizing it now. So we're going to get out of this. I don't want it to take 10 years. I want it to take a year or two. we can do it, but we do need to get organized. People have to start paying attention. People have to put the time into what matters. Stop falling for the psyops out there. Stop falling for all the distractions, because there's so many of them. They know they can distract us so easily. Don't fall for it.
Yeah, and it's
another book. Here's another book. Let me grab it. This one is important. Hold on.
Okay. Well, Dwayne,
right here.
How's that
What's
call
that?
in? What is that?
Oh,
That
Fifth
is
Generation
Citizen's
Warfare.
Guide to Fifth Generation Warfare. I highly recommend every citizen buys this and read it, so you'll understand what we are experiencing here.
Who wrote that book?
Written by General Flynn and Boone Cutler. General Michael Flynn and Boone Cutler.
Yeah.
Very, very important book.
Fifth Generation Warfare. Everybody go out and buy that. And we still got about 20 minutes left in the program. We'd like to hear from you. 385-899-2134. This is Truth and Consequences with Roy Piscadlo and Steve Aist. We have Mark Cook on today. Mark is an election, I'll call you what do you call yourself? I'll call you election warrior, election guru, election.
I have no idea. I'm getting tired, but I'm powering through.
He probably knows more about elections than anyone, and he knows how they're cheating, and he is a patriot, and we are very grateful to have him on our show today. Please call in 385-899-2234 and ask Mark a question. So where do we go from here today between now and election time? Where should that focus be, Mark? I know we've touched on it. Just to encourage people to get out and vote at this point.
I would say if you haven't seen my presentation, you need to see the presentation. There is strategy that people can employ right now for short term for the upcoming primaries and long term. I will be putting them out on the Hand Count Roadshow site is going to have those here in the next, I would say, 2 to 3 weeks. I'll start putting those out so people, know what to do. There are a lot of good groups out there. There are a lot of good people out there that are starting to come up with this list of things that people can do.
Because it helped me.
And I'm just going to be yet another one. People are free to contact me. I'm happy to help you in any way.
And one of the things I would recommend, it can be a little bit frustrating, but going and being a poll watcher, going in here in Salt Lake County, just watching what they're doing, it is frustrating if you go in there, speaking from experience, going in there and not understanding what's going on. And that's why I recommend visiting Mark's website, watching at least one of his presentations. Just pick a state or pick a county in some state, watch the presentation, and climb the learning curve as best you can, and then volunteer, go in there. And I think that the more people that go in and volunteer, so that the county clerk knows that a lot of people are paying attention, that would help them pay attention as well. But it's not going to be a panacea, because when you stand in there, you're watching them run these ballots through the Dominion machine or the ES&S machine and the signature scanner with the Agilis machine and all this stuff, and you realize that the people, the county people, the employees are not really running the election. It's the actual vendors themselves that are running the election and doing everything. But go ahead.
Yeah, I got a great idea I just thought of here. This is what people can do. This is another thing that people can do, and this is super easy.
Here, click on the...
Literally on the spot.
Yeah. And I've got so many things going through my head at all times, so it's tough to remember all of it. So let's see here. I'm pulling it up right now. LetMyPeopleGo.movie. That's the website. LetMyPeopleGo.movie. This is an absolutely incredible documentary done by Professor David Clements, who is an incredible patriot, brilliant guy, attorney, teacher, just a great American patriot, courageous, God-loving person. I cannot say anything more about him.
Well, really both Roy and I had the opportunity to meet him actually in Missouri a couple of years ago,
and his wife,
Erin. And you're right, they're great people.
They're great people.
Appreciate very much what he's doing for the country as well.
Coupon code COOK. So when you go to stream it or buy it, you can actually put in a coupon code that'll give you 50% off. You feel free to use my last name, COOK. It is a documentary that takes and sums up what's really going on with our election system, how it all works, and ties it all into what we're going through as a country, and also is a tribute to our J6 prisoners, who are J6 prisoners because of a corrupt election system.
Right.
They ended up in that situation because we have a corrupt election system.
That's true.
And if we didn't have we wouldn't have people in prison right now. We have political prisoners, our own people. It's absolutely disgusting. And our country is so much better than this. So everyone should watch this. And here's what I'd recommend. Set up watch parties. Have a neighborhood or family watch party. Make it a neighborhood. Invite your friends and family over. Invite neighbors over. Do a potluck, a barbecue, whatever. So you can get 20 or 30 people together. Even if it's 5 or 10 people in a living room, get together, watch this movie, and then have a discussion about how you want to get involved. If everyone did that alone, we'd take care of 50% of the problem right there.
That's a really good idea. I think that's a challenge to everybody out there that's listening. Don't just think about it. Do it. It's that simple. We all need to take part in this. We all need to stand up and do our part. And Mark's played a huge role in where we've gotten to this point in educating people. We've got a few minutes left. Do we have another caller? 385-899-2134. It could be your last chance for a while anyway to talk to Mark Cook. And definitely go to his website at handcountroadshow.org and look for yourself at how people are cheating the American citizens here. It's the best presentation I've seen on election integrity out there. And Roy and I we've seen a lot.
Yeah, we've seen a lot.
I wanted to, Mark, relay an experience I had recently to you. I went down and I actually volunteered for our election here this past November in Salt Lake County to actually be an election worker. So I went down 3 days, 8 hours a day, and I was tasked with taking the ballot out of the envelope after the Agilis machine had scanned the signatures and opened the ballot. So I took the sleeve out of the envelope and set it in a separate pile and set the envelope in a separate pile. And I had the opportunity to speak with other volunteers. And as a woman was passing by, and this happened twice, I said, "So what brings you here?" essentially. And, "Well, I'm an election worker just like you." And I said, "Well, what do they have you doing?" And both of them said, and this is two separate instances, but both of them said, "Well, we're certifying signatures." And I looked and I said, "Really?" I said, "Well, what kind of training have you had for that?" And I think this is something that, when I saw your presentation, it gave me the idea to ask the question, what kind of training have you had that would qualify you to verify whether a signature was actually that person? They said, oh, I watched about a 20 to 30-minute video. And I said, well, how did you score in the test? And just as you said in your presentation, they said, what test? There was no test. And I said, well, how does that qualify you to certify these signatures as to whether that vote counts or not? And one said, well, it really doesn't. And the other, I said, how confident do you feel in that process? And she said, I don't feel confident at all. And yet they're doing it. I mean, It's such a joke all across the board. And that was just one way. I saw that firsthand. They had people with zero experience.
Well, they don't want people with experience because it is a joke. It doesn't matter. Signature verification is a joke because signature verification doesn't actually do anything. Even if the signature did match, you still don't know who filled the ballot out.
True.
So if the whole point of the signature verification is to make sure that the person filled the ballot out, and there's no way it can do that, it's nothing more than a massive waste of time and a false sense of security for everyone. It's a joke, and these people must be laughing at us.
Well, I don't think they're laughing at you, and I don't think they're laughing at some of us because we're onto them, and we're educating as many people as we can, and we will get there. I personally have a lot of hope, or I wouldn't be doing this. I think this is, some of us, it's our calling. And we all take a little different approach to it, like you. I mean, you've thrown your entire existence into it. But there's people like Roy and I and many others here in Utah alone.
We're part-timers relative to you, Mark.
Relative to you, part-timers.
I started part-time too. I remember that.
I get to sleep in my own bed every night. I guess that's almost every night. Roy and I did travel the state, talking to all the clerks, and that was an experience in and of itself. But we're so grateful to have you on, and I wish we could clone you and have.
Well, you can. You're already doing that right now, because when you're going out and doing what you're doing, you are cloning me. You are cloning my efforts, and that's how we fix this. There are so many more of us. We just have to get off our couch and not be afraid to go out and do something about it. If we all go out and do something about it, we win automatically. They will not be able to continue this BS. There are so many more of us. We just have to go out and fix it. And that's what they are deathly afraid of. That's why they've been barking at us, trying to scare us and force us to stay in our houses and wear diapers on our face. Yeah. That's just the beginning of what they want to do with us. Those 15-minute cities, turn into 10-minute cities, and then 5-minute cities, and then a cell. That's exactly what they intend to do to us unless we don't allow them. So let's stop allowing them to do it. Their game is over. I'm not stopping. I never. Ever. No way. And you guys can't stop either. And we need to turn this into tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands and then millions. And then the cabal, they're over. That's how we take back our country. This belongs to us, period.
Yeah, we agree with you 100%. Here's an interesting story. I'm running for a state Senate seat in the 15th district. Well, the Democratic opponent happened to have run for the vacated 3rd congressional seat, and she lost to a Republican. I happened to run into this woman on a dog trail about a month after the November election, and she felt that they cheated her, a Democrat. She was convinced that they cheated the system.
They likely did.
I said they likely did. They probably
I have a lot of Democrats contact me and say, will you still talk to me even though I'm a Democrat? Yes, of course. Well, I think I got cheated the same way you guys did. Like, there's no you guys about this. I was a Democrat longer than I've been a Republican. And, I just didn't realize, I thought just the Democrats were corrupt. I didn't realize that the Republicans are corrupt too. Not all of them, and not all Democrats are corrupt, but there's a political elite on both sides that ruins it for everyone. And the political elite are corrupt. This is the citizens versus the corrupt political elite. It is not a Republican versus Democrat issue.
Couldn't agree.
We need to start joining hands and arms with our fellow Democrat citizens who we differ on our outlook. Like, we differ on policies. I get that. But that's why we have elections. That's why we have voting. And our voting system must work so all of our voices can be counted when we vote. And so we can all agree on that. We all want fair, transparent, verifiable elections that we can guarantee are accurate.
Roy couldn't have said it any better than that. That's perfect. We agree.
You know what's funny is, I have this debate with people who claim to be Republicans, but they hate Trump. And it goes back to something you said before, Mark, which is that don't fall for the psyop. I look at him and I go, dude, you've got, and this is my business partner. I've known him for like 30 something years. Okay. And he's got Trump derangement syndrome. He just cannot get past it. And I'm like, this has nothing to do with Donald Trump other than he's just walking straight into the fire.
Okay, here's how you fix him. First, go to pull up my site again. We're going to look at Get Educated, Important Resources, and have him watch.
Yeah, that video. That's a great video
right here. Democrats join cybersecurity experts. It's a very short video. It's 7 minutes or something. Have him watch it. Then after he's watched that, then pull up Let My People Go and just have him watch that and have a discussion about it. That's it. 2 simple things. And then you guys sit and talk.
Yeah.
And then if he's ready for more, Vote Scam. Have him read Vote Scam. And then 5th Generation Warfare. And I'll tell you, I think those 4 things will paint the picture perfectly. And people will start getting it.
Yeah, I know it's true. I've seen that video. I've not read the books, but
it's funny. Like, I had my father-in-law. We're talking about something just completely unrelated, and he just looks at me and goes, "I hate Trump." I'm like, "We're not even talking about Donald Trump." He goes, "I hate Trump," and I'm like,
"Yeah,
Gene, and I haven't been able to talk to him since, and I'm not going to talk to him. He's 90-something years old, and he just won't talk to me, and he'll pass away, but before I'll ever have a chance to talk to him again."
Yeah, it truly is a derangement.
TBS is real.
It really is a sickness. It really is a disease.
I wouldn't say it's a disease. It's a mental
illness.
It's a mental illness that has been created. It's not like a physiological thing. It is a psychological illness that was manufactured by very, very smart people utilizing
the mainstream
media, social media and mainstream media and psychological tactics to program people. I mean, television programming. They programmed people to just hate the man without understanding or having any logical basis for it.
It's completely irrational.
Totally irrational. And it's difficult for them to get past it. That's why they get really frustrated when you question him. You say, "Why do you hate him? What things did he do that caused you to not like him?"
Well, he said
they can't
beaver.
Conceptualize it. Yeah, or they'll spit out the talking point, but when you ask them, "Well, what was the context of it?" They search for the reasoning behind their feeling, but they don't have any logical reasoning because they didn't logically think about it. It's all emotionally based. And so when they try to rationalize logic, when there is no logic to back it up and they have only emotion, they release emotion because it makes them scared and uncomfortable, because they created this thought, this emotion based on a lack of logic. And when they finally realize that, it's frightening to them. It's a psychological game that these people have played. It's psychological manipulation, and it's disgusting. It didn't work on some of us. It didn't at all work on some of us. It worked on me in the past before I started paying attention, and my BS detector got pretty darn good. But just help people through it. Not everyone's going to make it through it. Not everyone will realize it. But here's what I would ask him. And he may not work because he's 96. I don't know. Old dogs, new tricks doesn't really work. But what I would ask people is, listen, have you ever been lied to before? And everyone will answer yes. And the next question is, did you know you were being lied to while you were being lied to every time? The answer is no, of course not. Did you find out later? Yes. Okay. So therefore, we've established that someone's been able to lie to you that you didn't realize until later. How is this any different? Another question to ask is, do you know more today than you did yesterday? Of course. And likewise, you'll know more tomorrow than you did today. That means you don't know everything today. Correct. Therefore, how you feel about something today may change tomorrow based on getting more information. Can you make a decision if you don't have all the facts? If you have only part of the facts and you make a decision, is that a better decision than if you had all the facts? Of course not. So the more facts you get about something, your opinion may change. And you have to be open to examining those facts. Otherwise, you might make wrong decisions. So hopefully people are open enough to realize, if let's say you got a friend of yours and you realize your friend's being cheated on by their spouse, and you go to them and tell them, hey, your spouse is cheating on you. They're not going to want to believe you. In fact, in a lot of cases, they'll turn on you and try to rationalize you trying to break their marriage up than to have to admit that they've been lied to by someone they trust, because that's a really frightening thing. But then when you actually show them the proof, if they're willing to look at the picture or the video of them getting cheated on, then all of a sudden they've got to deal with it. And so we got to get to the point where people are open enough to at least look. And I got to tell you, America, your elections are cheating on you.
Yes, they are.
I know you want to make me the bad guy for telling you this, but you better open your eyes and realize it, because how long do you want to be in a relationship with someone that's cheating on you without you knowing?
And the relationship is between the public and the politicians that are, managing the system.
Yeah. And many of them aren't even politicians. They're the ones that control the politicians in several cases.
They are. And a lot of the politicians just don't know any better. They're literally, a lot of them believe the lie too.
Yeah.
They don't know. And that's why they're so sold on us being crazy, saying that there's election fraud, because they truly in their heart think there's no election fraud, because they just don't know it. They don't realize they're being used also.
I'd say, Mark, we've run into hundreds of those politicians as we've traveled the state.
And I have too. And I've helped open a lot of eyes as well.
Well, that's what we're here for, and that's what we're about. And quite honestly, that's what this station is about in general terms. It's about
this station here that we're
broadcasting from, Main Street Media, Utah. We've got to get that plug in, because they are, attempting to give everyone a voice here. And we want to hear all opinions, and we want to hear from you if you disagree with us. We want to hear, if we're not telling the truth, tell us why, and tell us why. Give us good examples. We'd love to have that discussion with you at kmmu.org. That's how you find us, or www.mainstreetmediautah.com. We are so blessed to have Mark Cook with us today. Make sure you go look at his website, handcountroadshow.org. We've come up on the 6 o'clock hour mark. We are so grateful to have you.
And just to let our listeners also know that we will be having Tina Peters on at some point in the near future.
That's right. Yeah, we will. We don't want that to interfere with her trial. By the way, are you going to be involved with that trial in any capacity, Mark?
I do not know yet.
Well, we hope you are, because if the judge allows your testimony, I think it'll go very well for Tina.
I do too. If the judge isn't part of the problem, I mean,
well, it's going to be, they're going to have to allow his testimony in.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, my testimony is about what was inside the machines, and I don't know that what she's being prosecuted for now. I don't think they're going after what was inside the machines. I think they're trying to get her on some technicality that
exactly
wouldn't be aligned with my knowledge. But I know what the truth is, and other people know what the truth is, and the truth is absolutely going to come out. There's nothing they're going to do to stop it. Everyone's going to know.
The truth will set you free.
Yep.
That's
and every
right.
single person is going to be held accountable. So people need to look in the mirror and decide what side of the fence they want to be on. Do they want to be on the side of truth, or do they want to suffer the consequences? I tell you what, people can be forgiving. Now the window to come correct on this and be open and honest and be on the right side of things is quickly closing. So I hope people reach deep into their souls and decide to do the right things, because you could turn into, instead of being persecuted, you could turn into a worldwide hero. So what do you want to be?
Well, we agree wholeheartedly, Mark. We want to again thank you so much for coming on. We'd like to have you on again sometime in the near future as we grow our audience and more people find out about us at Mainstream Media Matters, Mainstream Media Utah, and our show Truth and Consequences with Steve Aist and Roy Piscadlo. Mark, again, thank you. Mark Cook, one last time, handcountroadshow.org. Everybody, and you, your family, your friends, your neighbors, everyone needs to take a look at that. Mark, thank you so much.
Hey, Mark,
you're welcome, guys. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Yeah, and stay on for a little bit. We'll say our proper goodbyes. Okay, so just stay on for just